make it? Did we, the river monsters got us? I think we've reestablished connection with our wagon train. So actually getting lost and separated from your wagon train, which was all the wagons that just chose to kind of go together to Oregon at a time, was really bad news for you. And that meant that you might starve, you might, if you broke down, you'd be all alone. It was bad news. Okay, so anyway, you have to watch an ad. I apologize. So everyone, should we wait until conditions improve? Like maybe the river kind of height will go down, or should we get more information? What do you think? You want to get more information? All right, let's look. To ford a river means to pull your wagon across a shallow part of the river with the oxen still attached. Caulking the wagon means to seal it so that no water can get in. The wagon can then be floated across like a boat. To use a ferry means to put your wagon on top of a flatboat that belongs to someone else. The owner will take you across the river for a fee. All right, so what's the word? What? I should just freeze. All right, we got a 2. We got a 5. We got 2. All right, it looks like 2's taken over. We're going to caulk the wagon and float it across. Let's do it, team. All right. It looks like it's going okay. It looks like it's going okay. Hey, all right. We made it. Well done. Well done. You had no trouble getting across the river. Let's keep going. We're going to give it till about 12:15. And then we're gonna get going again, okay? From the Canvas River crossing, it is 82 miles to Big Blue River. So here's the thing. We don't have a lot of time, chat, before we have to move on. So here's what we're going to do. We're in good health. Our pace is steady. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our pace to a grueling pace. So we're going to really put in a lot of effort, only really sleeping and eating when we're not going hard. And we're going to keep our rations right now at filling. I hope we can do that. We have 630 pounds of food. So hopefully that nice food ration will keep us in the game while we work really hard. You are now at the Big Blue River crossing. Let's look around. Big Blue River crossing. Spacebar to continue, right? So let's continue on the trail. You must cross the river in order to continue. The river at this point is currently 254 feet across and 5.6 feet deep in the middle. So it's actually less deep than the previous river that we were on. So the question for us is, what do we want to do? Ford the river, float it, or do we want to wait around? You think we can ford the river? I don't know if our wagons are that tall. Are you serious? Well, you know what happened? You know what happened, chat? Like, in those wagon trains, you often had, like, little democracies springing up, where you'd have a wagon train and they'd have a wagon leader, and they'd kind of all get together to size up the situation and choose what they wanted to do. And sometimes you'd have a bunch of people voting one way, like, we should go this way, and the other side wants to go the other way. And what would happen is the wagon trains would sometimes split up. And so that usually didn't go too well for any of them. So let's go ahead, though. We're all in agreement here. We're going to ford the river. Let's see if we can make it happen. All right, looking good so far. Oh, uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no! Oh, chat, what did you do? The river is too deep to ford. You lost 2 sets of clothing, just floated away, 1 wagon wheel, a wagon tongue, so most of our tools and replacement parts are gone now. We lost 4 of our oxen, and we also lost Ishwar. He's dead now, and Ezekiel is also dead. So it's now myself and Mason, and I forget who the last person is, but this has become a very awkward trip, for sure. Okay, I'm surprised I didn't get pushed over into the water. So from the Big Blue River crossing, it is 118 miles to Fort Kearny. So let's get going. All right, so our health is pretty good. It's cool weather, which means it's good. We got a lot of food, so we're still pretty good. Our health is fair now. Maybe we're working a bit too hard. Let's look around at Fort Kearny. Right? So there were these outposts on the trail that had little economies set up, where you could buy food, which we can do if you want to, I don't think we need to, though. We can look around. Let's look at the map. Okay, so we've gone from the start, Independence, Missouri, over to Fort Kearny. Okay, so we're getting there. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk to people. A fort soldier tells you the trails from the jumping off places, Independence, St. Joseph, Council Bluffs, some come together at Fort Kearny. This new fort was built by the U.S. Army to protect those bound for California and Oregon. Okay, cool. So a lot of people are coming here, right? Let's continue on the trail. It's 250 miles to Chimney Rock, the famous kind of geological... that's not good. Jeff Rowe has dysentery. You find an abandoned wagon with the following two wheels. Okay, our health is really bad, and there's a blizzard somehow. So let's go ahead and we're gonna change our pace a little bit. We're gonna change it to a steady pace, so we don't want to lose our other people here. Would you like to try and repair it? We just broke our You were unable to repair the broken wagon wheel. You must replace it with a spare part. Okay? So we're moving along, and our food is dwindling. Right? I guess we're not a very good carpenter. Maybe that's why we need to go to Oregon. Couldn't make it happen out east. Severe thunderstorm. We lost a day. Our health is back up to fair since we've taken a bit of a break. Oh, we lost 2 days from taking the wrong trail. Oh, it's a carpenter from Ohio. Everything makes sense now. Okay, let's take a look at Chimney Rock. We made it. Chimney Rock. Okay, so we can look at our map. Right, there we are at Chimney Rock. I think we can talk to people. 8. About noon yesterday, we came in sight of Chimney Rock, looming up in the distance like the lofty tower of some town. We did not tire gazing on it. It was about 20 miles from us and stayed in sight till we reached it today. So you can see it a long way away, and it takes a long time to get there. We can attempt to trade if we want to. Okay, you meet another emigrant who wants 2 wagon wheels. You don't have this. Cool. All right, great. Wirecraft mechanics now. We're wearing a lot of hats as a carpenter. From Chimney Rock is 86 miles to Fort Laramie. So we're still going. We're going to have to buy some food, though, when we get to Fort Laramie. Austin has a broken arm. Oh, gosh. I mean, it kind of felt that way, to be honest. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, I guess. Jeffrey is exhausted. Only the devilish Mason and his evil energy is keeping us going. You pass a gravesite. Would you like to look closer? Let's do it. Here lies Voland. Hey, 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 come out and play. That's really creepy, so we're going to keep moving on. We're at Fort Laramie. Okay. All right, so let's talk to some people. A woman traveler tells you, be warned, stranger, don't dig a water hole. Drink only river water. Salty as the Platte River is, it's better than the cholera. We buried my husband last week. Could use some help with this harness if you can spare the time, right? So a lot of really nasty stuff was happening to travelers, and it was very common for people to lose their lives on this trail. As a result, a lot of people, helped each other out when they could to keep the wagon train going, to help others who had lost someone. It's pretty cool stuff. So what I want to do is we're out of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy as much food as we can, and then we're going to hit the most strenuous pace we can. We're going to see if we can make it to Oregon, okay? So let's go buy supplies. I want some food. And you'll notice it's actually more expensive now than it was in Independence. It's not really a surprise. The further we get out, the poorer the infrastructure. So I don't know. How much can we buy? Which number? Wait, what? Were we able to buy food? No? Can we buy 20 pounds? Yeah, we can. Let's buy 40 more. You know what? Let's just buy like 200. Wait, what? Can't afford that many. I'm not doing the math in my head. Let's see here. How much more food can we get, team? Should we buy other stuff? Should we buy other? Let's do oxen. Let's buy 1 oxen. Let's do clothing. Let's buy one set. Let's buy 4 wagon wheels. We don't want to get stuck. Oh, I'm out of money. All right, let's leave. Okay, so that's it. Let's change our pace to strenuous. Grueling, sorry. We're gonna change our food rations to filling, and we're going to continue on the trail. We need to make it. Let's rock. Yeah, oxen. Is that food? I think so. So we got a lot of food, and we're eating well. However, we're working our butts off, and I didn't see that coming. Well, shoot. Okay, has died. I wonder what did Jeffro die of? Well, the good news is our food's going to go much farther now, so that's good. It's just me and my evil cousin, or was it twin? I don't even remember. I have measles now. I bet he caused it. All right, and we're on our way. Would you like to look Independence Rock? Right? Beautiful, even though it's like 8-bit and limited in its colors and resolution. It's really... This game has some really nice artwork. Continue, so let's keep going. 102 miles. We have very little water, but we have a lot of food, though. So I hope we can make it through. Mason's the only one getting to Oregon alive. That would be very bad for that state, I think. Badwater. You're now at South Pass. Let's take a look. Okay. So we're in between these mountains, which is pretty neat. Where are we on the map? All right, we're about halfway there. Maybe we'll make it. Okay, we have two options. Do we head to Green River Crossing or head for Fort Bridger? Let's take a look. So Fort Bridger is kind of south. The crossing is right here. We can see it, the river, right over here towards Soda Springs. So what should we do? What should we do, team? In other words, can we think of any reason to head to Fort Bridger at all? Because I cannot think of any reason we want to waste time and go south. So, good. Let's go to Green River Crossing. All right, we're really cruising now. We're still... Uh-oh, that's not good. We're still in June, so we got quite a bit of time. We're moving very fast. So, yes, let's look around. Okay, we got to cross the river. You must cross the river, okay? It's currently 400 feet across and 20 feet deep. I don't think we're going to be fording this one, team. What should we do? Should we take a ferry, or should we float it? No, we're not fording the river. Let's take a ferry. All right, I'm seeing 3 is beating out 2. You'll be willing to charge you $5, and you have to wait 3 days. I think I have $5, don't I? So I hope this goes smoothly. Yep, it did. All right, so that's planning. We saved enough money there to make it happen. So, chat, as we cruise along here and see if we... Oh. That's just sad, isn't it? Hold on a second. I'm not Mason, but I can put on the oh shoot, maybe I can put on the effect for you. What was it again? Let's do color correction, and we're gonna do that. I know his tricks. That's the thing, right? I know his tricks. So here we go. All right, so we're back into it. And we're gonna get our evil cousin, our virtual evil cousin, to the end here if we can. Okay, so find wild fruit. That's awesome. So we got a little boost in our food supplies. We are going to keep going here. Chat. Here's the takeaway. We're not just playing Oregon Trail. Think about it. We've been playing this game for a little while, and you've learned actually probably quite a bit, right? The idea that it mattered what time you left? Oh, of course it mattered what time you left, right? They had to deal with winter. If winter arrives and you're not to Oregon, if you're not through the mountains, right, you become the Donner Party. You get stuck in the mountains, and that's really bad. Okay, literally people would try and float their wagons across. That's ridiculous, right? But they tried to do it, and sometimes it worked. Soda Springs. So you're kind of learning stuff in all these different facts. Oh, that's it. All right. Well, no evil energy in Mason didn't get us to the end here. Just Les Mason. And to be honest, this is probably what he needs. Yes. Stay. I can't write T. I can only write like S. I can only write S, chat. So press S in the chat. Say goodbye to Mason. All right, I think the game might be bugged or something. All right. So anyway, but this is the takeaway, right? And I'm gonna take that filter off because it's ridiculous. But this was the main point, right? You can see how a bunch of students came in, started playing this game, and said, "Whoa, okay, like, hey, we need to think about this, right?" Had 4 people playing on the same terminal because they only have so much technology in a high school, in a middle school, elementary school. And them like debating, like, oh, what does it mean to ford the river? Okay, well, wait, can we do that? How high were the wagons? It looks like they're like 3 feet, or like maybe 4 or 5 feet high. So should we try it? No, what does caulking the wagon mean? Oh, let's float it across, right? You learn all this stuff, and what Don said was, as students played the game, this debate just sprung up naturally. Right? The students wanted to debate what they should do, what their wagon train, what kind of supplies they should buy, which direction they should go on the map. And it was exactly, it had the same spirit that they had on the actual wagon trains when they were trying to decide what they should do. Should they stick around a little while? Should they pay? Should they speed up and go to grueling pace so that they can beat winter through the mountains? And so students just loved it, and they learned. And if you've heard about the Oregon Trail before, and if you have that notion of the Wild West in your mind, right? It's not just because of all those Wild West movies. A lot of it's going to be the Oregon Trail, right? You know that a bunch of Americans in the mid-1800s went out west on these classic-looking wagon trains. So this game might be why. So anyway, education. When it comes to educating, getting knowledge out there, to really putting you in an experience, games can't be beat, okay? Think about this. Before the Oregon Trail, the only way to learn about westward expansion was by reading like a secondhand account about what happened to someone. You read about someone else's experience. But with the Oregon Trail, you have the experience. And of course, it's not the same experience. It's simplified, but you still make some of the important decisions that actual people had to make back in the day. And you have to deal with some of the nasty problems that they had, right? It's not you reading about someone's problems. They're your problems now. And you're going to remember it, and you're going to think about them and engage with them in a much better way because of that, okay? So what I want to do, this game has surpassed my wildest imagination of a game in the 90s. So keep in mind, the 90s had like NES and Super Nintendo and Super Mario Bros. So there were a lot of games that are very impactful from that timeline, but that period. But anyway, so let's take a break right now. We're going to take 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, the games industry, and in particular, business analysis tools, okay? Get a little mini Ross lecture going. See you in 5, everyone. I'll throw the music back on. Please ask me any questions that you might have. Let's get some nice, relaxed music going on. Can we get any nice ambient music here? You know what? I'm gonna give you some music instead. That's very catchy and very classic. If anyone knows what game this music is from, I'll be impressed, but not super surprised. Let's give it a listen. Yeah, have I ever beaten the Oregon Trail? The answer is yes. It's not a very hard game. If you make sensible decisions, then you can get through it pretty consistently. Yeah, I beat it pretty easily my first attempt playing. But if you want to play it, it's only about 10 minutes long if you go fast. So I recommend giving it a play yourself. You can also probably go to the video game archive when it opens back up and play the authentic copy. I recommend that, in fact. We got some memeing going on in the Discord server here. This is not an indie game. I'll give you a hint. This music is from a Sega Genesis game. A Sega Genesis game so famous that it was actually re-released for the Nintendo Switch. In like I think a month or two ago. Here's another song from this same game. Okay, I'll give you one final hint. It's a Disney game. Ba-da, ba-ba-da, ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-da, ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. I wonder how long it will take the news of my death to reach the Wolverines memes page. My fans must know. They must get the word. Okay, so let's get back to it. So I'll remind you of this. Part of the reason, right? This is an MDE course. This is usually one of the final courses that any student takes in the computer science department. And if you want to be the high potential, if you want to reach your potential as an engineer, you need to not only be good and very comfortable and very thoughtful in your coding, but you need to understand the context in which your systems live, okay? Because your understanding of that context will determine whether those systems live and for how long and for how impactful they are, okay? And one of the big questions you need to ask yourself when you join any team, when you even set up a server in any org, okay? Where do you fit into the overall org. What value are you providing to that org? And who depends on you, right? Because otherwise you might find yourself cut out. You might find yourself being made irrelevant. And even if you have a computer program running on a server somewhere in the office or in the research lab, if no one understands why you're doing what you're doing, why that program needs to be running, what value that server provides, someone's got to throw it out, right? Someone's just going to kill that service as soon as you leave, and that's going to be the end of your impact, and that's very sad. We want to have impact. We want to create programs and systems that survive, that thrive, and that help people, okay? So we got to understand how resources flow through a system and where we fit into kind of our org structure, okay? So you've all seen this, right? What's interesting is that a lot of people are what I found anecdotally is a lot of people have very fond memories of this time period, right? Growing up, purchasing the packs of Pokemon cards. I remember going down to the local bait shop in one of the rural parts of Michigan where my grandparents lived, and we'd go down to the bait shop because that's the place where you could buy the Pokemon cards. And it was so fun. We would open up the Pokemon cards and look through them quickly. Every card you put over, like, oh, am I going to get a legendary Pokemon? Oh my gosh, am I going to get my favorite? And then maybe you're disappointed, so you got to buy another pack, right? Okay, how many of you bought Pokemon cards back in the day? Anyone? That might be a little bit too old for you. No? Jeez. I feel old for my age. Anyway, okay, so but what's interesting is what I'm going to be talking to you in just a little sec. Keep these Pokemon cards in your mind for just a minute, all right? And we're going to come back to it. Okay, so in the news lately, a lot of things have been changing in the landscape for game developers. The Epic Game Store, right? The PC game distribution market used to be dominated by Steam. However, Epic Games has showed up and they have a lucrative new idea. Let's give much more of the final cut to the game developers, right? So you find a lot of people are rushing over to release their game on Epic Game Store. You have Discord that launched a game store. I think they have since closed it, but I believe a year ago they had their own game store, and they were giving 90/10 to the developers. Bethesda has their own game store. If you play a Stardock game, they have their own game launcher where you can see other games. Steam has said, okay, we're going to start giving a better, a nicer cut to larger studios, right? So the times are changing. And the question is, how could we have predicted this? And why are the companies doing what they're doing? Okay? Back in the day, when you went and you opened up a chest, you completed a dungeon in a game, or you did something special, you get this cool chest and you get some cool loot, right? And it came across like this. Right? A lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, and it was a really nice reward for going out and completing something challenging. Nowadays, that same effect looks a little bit like this. Oh, rest in peace. This is the problem with relying on external footage. Well, that's a bummer right there. Okay, I want you to imagine. Hold on a second. We have the technology. Let's see if we can find an alternative video for you. Okay. Overwatch loot boxes. Oh, all right. Opening 100 anniversary loot boxes. That sounds like a good time to me.
Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and happy anniversary.
All right. I hope this guy doesn't say anything vulgar or immature.
Never seen before.
All right. So loot boxes.
Meant to be, guys. It is meant to be, and I don't want to hear nobody complain about my ears.
Okay.
I have to scream because I already got the main beekeeper skin. This came out.
All right. Come on. Stop talking, please. Just show us an opening box. Okay, so we get a box opening, and all these things are opening. Oh my goodness. And then it opens, it blows up, and you get a bunch of cool stuff, right? So, this is what a loot box looks like in Overwatch. You get a box, you open it up, you get some interesting randomized stuff, okay? So sometimes these boxes can hold different stuff. Unlike some of the classic games, Zelda, you open a chest box, and a chest, and it almost always has the same item in it. Okay. There's a difference though. Chat, riddle me this. Riddle me this. How do you get these? How do you get these loot boxes? That's right. That is right. So you actually, you don't really, you earn these boxes a little bit, but in reality, you actually tend to buy them. So you can play the game a lot, and you'll get kind of a drip feed of these boxes you can open. But typically, you can buy these, and that's a way of getting additional money from the user, from the player, right? So you know what these are. These are loot boxes. What do? Well, they give you a randomized item if you pay for the loot box. And more importantly, though, well, what do? They give you a sense of pride and accomplishment. So these have been extremely controversial with players, right? It's the idea that in the past you played the game and you overcame some challenge and you got a reward because of that, a reward that was kind of thoughtful and often not random. It was designed for the area in which you got it, so you got some really interesting, engaging gameplay. Now, players often see this as mainly a way for big companies to get money, right? So games have been $60 for a long time. The studios want to, inflation is a thing, so they need to get more and recruit more. And so the loot boxes are seen as being cash grabs, essentially. Yes, this is currently the most downvoted post in Reddit history, with negative 600,000 downvotes, which is pretty darn impressive. My old wonderful company here, I loved working there, for the record. So the question, though, isn't really, what are these, or what do they do, or are they a good thing or bad thing? The question I want to answer today is why now? Why would loot boxes and pay-to-win schemes show up now? All right? And could you predict this? We'll find out that, in fact, yes, you can. I want to plant a seed in your head, okay? That will go some way to explaining why this might be happening and why certain games have loot boxes while others do not. So, on the left, I'm going to give you several games. Overwatch is one of them. The next one is Shadow of War. And the next one is Battlefront 2. Okay? On the right, I'm going to give you 3 games. The first one is Sea of Thieves. The second one is Horizon Zero Dawn. And the final one is Super Mario Odyssey. Okay? What I want to point out is that the games on the left have microtransactions, and they have pay-to-win schemes. The games on the right, to my knowledge, do not. Okay? It's just a $60 purchase up front, and then you got the game, go play it. Right? No more transactions. And so the question is, why are the games over here like this, and why are the games over here filled with microtransactions? Okay? And I'll give you a little hint. Riddle me this. Who makes these games? What companies make these games? And what companies make these games? There's a very big difference between the companies that made these games and over here. Okay? So, let's keep going. We'll come back to this. By the way, as much as we might complain about loot boxes today as players, what are the differences between loot boxes and Pokemon cards? Consider that. Okay, let's keep going. Steam, right? You know what this is. This is Valve's famous market-dominant kind of game distribution platform that takes a 30% cut of every sale on the store. What is this? Does anyone know what this logo is? This is Origin. This is Electronic Arts' version of Steam. Okay? These are both distribution platforms, but EA a while ago took their games off of Steam, which they had been using, and they said, you know what, we're going to build our own Steam, and we're going to sell our games through our own service. The question is, why would they do this? Right? They were selling a ton of copies on Steam. Why would they do this? What's the point? So, some tools for business questions. Why did loot boxes appear? Why did Electronic Arts create Origin? Why is GameStop in freefall right now? Well, these can be answered with 2 pretty simple tools, okay? They're so simple you can just kind of keep them in your head, and you can even work them out in your head. An ecosystem map and a value chain. We'll go into what both of these are right now. A quick note, some of this knowledge comes from a lecture in the teaching of Dr. Aaron Crum, my fantastic professor that I had in the entrepreneurial school, the entrepreneurial center here in the College of Engineering. I highly encourage you to take some of the Center for Entrepreneurship's fantastic courses. You'll learn a lot. You'll get an appreciation for why certain things are the way they are. Okay, ecosystem map. How many of you have one of these? A printer? How many of you have a printer? And by the way, how many of you love your printer? Anyone love their printer? It's so reliable. The ink is so cheap. Right? So printers are an extremely interesting case of ecosystems at work. Okay? So if you look at this printer right here, it's actually doing some really impressive stuff. This is an incredible device. It takes digital data and it finds a way to make that digital data just appear in the physical world. Right? It's essentially the converter between the digital world and our physical world. And it's all in this little plastic machine. It's got a touch screen, right? It produces some pretty great looking images, right? And if you look at the price of this incredible machine, even though it sometimes is unreliable, it's $99. It's $99. Really? Like for a little bit more than the cost of one video game, you can get this incredible piece of technology? That's kind of crazy when you think about it. How is it that cheap? And then later, you might discover why it's so cheap, right? Because while the printer is really cheap and affordable for what it actually does and accomplishes, the ink, not so much, huh? Right? The ink though. So ink, $34 for black and white, or if you want the color ink, you've got a $70 cartridge. And you know what's great about these cartridges? They dry out, they expire. Okay, these last for like 3 or 4 months. I believe that's it. And as you use these ink cartridges, well, you got to buy more. I mean, it doesn't just resupply itself or work forever. So you got to go buy them. By the way, how much do you think, I looked this up, how much do you think it costs to actually create the ink in this black cartridge? Any guesses, chat? Ish, please shout out Dr. Crum for me. He's so cool. A couple cents. Bingo. Okay. The ink in this package costs less than the packaging it's in. Okay. Literally, the packaging costs way more than the ink does. Okay. Literally cents for entire gallon barrels of ink. However, the margin on these are absolutely ridiculous, and it's the kind of item that you have to buy continuously, all right? It's a recurring, consistent, and predictable sale, which is very nice from a company's perspective. Here's our ecosystem map, okay? We draw some product in the center, okay? And then we're going to fill in the space around it with all of the other services and value exchanges that happen with this product, okay? So you got the Epson workforce. Well, first you got the hardware. You got to buy the hardware. $99. It's impressive. It's an impressively low cost for the hardware. And I have to imagine they're not making a whole lot of money on the hardware, if any at all. Maybe it's a loss for them. Ink cartridges, though, $30 to $60, and that's the important part right there. Per 3 months, okay? So as soon as you buy this, you will be giving this company $30 to $60 every 3 months for as long as you have that printer, which will probably be a while, right? Okay, this is the ecosystem. It's a simple one, but it's extremely effective, right? And this little block up here is so important to the company that you will actually see them, stories about them, doing whatever they can to fight people who would allow you to just buy ink at wholesale prices, okay? Like a generic third-party ink, no way. They can't allow that to happen. They must fight against that legally. They must fight against that from a technical perspective, trying to make cartridges, the machine not recognize unauthorized cartridges. Because if they lose this up here, what happens to the hardware price over here? The company needs to stay in business. If they lose this reoccurring revenue stream, 30 to 60 bucks per every 3 months. What happens to the hardware cost? So hardware costs will go up to cover the lost. That's right. Right? So the hardware cost has to skyrocket, and it has to kind of represent what the true value of the hardware is. And that's not great, right? I mean, if you think about it, if this hardware, if the hardware goes up to be like $400, that's going to make it really hard for a lot of people and families to own a printer, right? That initial hardware goes up in cost, and then, maybe a family can't afford it. It becomes a lot less accessible to own a printer. Though on the other hand, right, if you don't have to pay this ink cartridge cost, then maybe over the long run it's actually cheaper for people. So there are pros and cons to weigh about having this ecosystem in the first place. Okay, let's keep going. Another cool example of a local ecosystem is a company called Dreamgate VR, founded by one of my friends, Craig Albert. And essentially, it's a 4-person shared space VR setup. We'll play the trailer here. Hold on. It is a 4-person HTC Vive setup where all of the 4 people, they wear a laptop on their back. And the laptops actually talk to each other. So it's shared space VR. You can actually see your teammates in the virtual space where they actually are relatively to you physically. And so you got this cool little tower defense thing going on where you need to actually talk and yell at your partner and say, hey, get over there, position yourself right. It's really, really cool stuff. Anyway, what they do is, to make money, they rent out like 10-minute sessions at the mall, at Briarwood Mall. And here's what their ecosystem map looks like. You've got Dreamgate VR, you have a play session, $10, okay? So it's pretty affordable, and a lot of people play as a result. However, it's not just that. You can do 4 players simultaneously in that one Dreamgate VR space. So you can have at $10 per play and 10-minute plays, you can get 6 sessions per hour, which means the company is capped at about making $240 per hour. And I believe they were managing to hit that. It's really, really cool stuff. However, if the company wants to grow this platform and make it into a big thing, they have to have better cash flow than that. And so what they'll do is to say, how else can we get value out of what we've created? So what they do is they make not only, they don't make boring games, they make really exciting ones that are really easy to share with others. And so there's implicit advertising. One person comes to play, they come back with their family. I know I did that a few times. And in the future, they want to expand it more. If you've ever heard of like platform, right? And tech people talking about, I'm making a platform. And venture capitalists saying, oh, I invested in these platforms. That's the reason is because everyone wants to have a platform so that they can kind of get a lot of value out of their ecosystem from other people participating in it. So what they want is a Dreamgate platform where you can go to a Dreamgate setup in the next state. You can go to one in Ohio. You can go to one in Michigan. It will save your data, persistent across both of those. And they will allow third-party devs to build games for this platform, and then they'll take a percentage of that time that's spent playing those games, right? The cut made from those. So anyway, startups are always thinking about how can we become more of a platform? How can we make our ecosystem more interesting, deeper, right? Getting value for us and getting it to the player as well, right? Okay, how many of you have one of these devices? So usually in person, the hands just all skyrocket, right? Everyone's got a smartphone, whether that's Google, Huawei, whether that's Apple, Xiaomi, Samsung. And you can do a really incredible ecosystem map for these devices, okay? We're a little bit low on time, so I'm not going to ask you to do one for your device. However, I want you to join me in thinking about this Apple iPhone ecosystem that we're about to do, okay? So we've got the iPhone. What else do we have? You know what? Actually, chat, I want to hear from you really quickly. In 20 seconds, tell me some other way that Apple gets money or gives value to the user other than just the hardware, okay, at around $820 when I created this for the iPhone 8. So what are the different ways that Apple and the customers kind of exchange value? The customer giving Apple some cash, Apple giving the customer some service. Boom, iCloud, right? iCloud storage. Pay $1 per month and you get 50 gigabytes, right? Chargers. Ooh, chargers. So peripherals, hardware. All right. Hardware chargers that break often. Interesting. App Store. Where you put your developer, you put your app on the store, and they take 30% of all your proceeds. Apple TV, the dongles, headphones. This is awesome. FaceTime, right? Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't really FaceTime people who don't also have an iOS device, right? Fantastic. Excellent. Well done. So let's talk about iCloud, right? So hardware first. I can't remember what year this was, but you can go onto sec.gov and you can find filings for public companies because public companies need to tell you how they're making money every quarter. So 4 times per year. Hardware. Apple made $115 billion from this. iCloud at $1 per month, and 1 billion users. That's still a nice chunk of change, right? What about the App Store? Taking 30% of all proceeds going to any developer on the App Store brought about $21 billion a few years ago to Apple. What about Apple Music, right? $10 per month. That gets you 11 million users. And how much money is that? That's a good chunk of change. Here's one that's interesting, though. Whenever you buy an Apple device, whether it's a laptop, whether it's an iPad, an iPhone, I assume iWatch as well, they give you stickers, right? Did you ever think that was a little bit strange? The company gives you some stickers when you buy their expensive product. Well, they would like you to take that sticker and put it on your laptop or put it on your fridge or put it on your wallet or your credit card or wherever people put stickers these days, on their car, right? Because they would like you to do some free advertising for them. What about the Apple Developer Program? If you want to build any software for Mac devices, or if you want to release any stuff in the store, you have to pay $99 annually to make that happen. You know what's interesting too? Ecosystems can link to other ecosystems. So you know what works really well when you have an iPhone? An iWatch, right? I remember I'm an Android guy because I care about keeping costs really low. And my parents, I believe, got me an Apple Watch for a holiday gift, and I was very grateful for that. However, the fact that I was an Android user, right, kind of didn't work out, right? The Apple Watch doesn't work very well with Android, and so I would have to get an iPhone. In fact, I might consider making my next phone an iPhone if I really wanted the Apple Watch, right? The Apple Watch, of course, comes with its own, and I'll go away here, comes with its own App Store. It comes with its own hardware. You know what goes really great with an Apple Watch and an iPhone? How about a Mac, right? It comes with hardware, its own App Store, and all of that. So you can see how these ecosystems, they all kind of link together with one service supporting another. And every time you invest in a service, right, if you're storing all of your data in iCloud, you might think twice about getting an Android device or switching to Windows, platforms where it's kind of harder to access your data. If you have really gotten used to using the Apple App Store to find all of your cool apps, you might not want to go into a new kind of ecosystem that Google has and mess with all that, learn all that new technology. You might not want to do that, okay? Anyway, yeah, Apple's a really, really valuable company these days, in part because it's so good at creating an incredible ecosystem where there are just a billion ways for Apple to help you out and for you to help Apple out, right? So anyway, let's talk about this in the context of games. In 1998, you had a game called StarCraft made by Blizzard Entertainment. And the ecosystem app was kind of like this, all right? Game disc. You bought it for $50 or $60. There was implicit advertising involved because this game had a really exceptional multiplayer for the time. And so you had to go convince your friends to buy the game disc and join the ecosystem. to play multiplayer with them, right? And after a year or two, maybe you got an expansion pack for $20 to $30. And that was pretty much it, right? It was a very, very simple ecosystem. It was one that was fairly easy to leave because you bought the game, you played the game. Did you enjoy it? Good. Maybe buy the expansion. Did you not enjoy it? Go play something else. You haven't invested a ton of money and time and attention, right? So let's talk about the same company releasing a game in 2016, Overwatch. One of the interesting things here is that even, I believe, despite inflation, Overwatch is a cheaper game to buy than StarCraft, even around 15 years later. It's very impressive. However, when you start playing Overwatch, you'll notice a few things. There is a much more interesting ecosystem going on here, right? So in order to launch Overwatch, you have to run a program called Battle.net. What does Battle.net do? Well, Battle.net is a program that shows you all of the other games that Blizzard has released, right? So when you move your cursor over there to launch Overwatch, oh, cool. What is that Diablo game? That's got some sweet box art. Oh, a StarCraft 2. I heard about that, right? Maybe I should buy those 2 games. Maybe they're going to be my next games, right? So that's a really interesting part of the ecosystem right there. Your purchase of Overwatch helps convince you to at least give a chance to these other Blizzard games. You've also got kind of non-game media going on. You've got comic books for Overwatch that deliver a lot of the story. You've got movies and trailers that are absolutely beautiful and kind of get you into the universe of the game and get you more invested. You watch the trailer, you just want to go play the game. You want to play the new character that just came out, right? You've got social media integration. So this Overwatch brand has a lot of like Facebook and Twitter contests going on, and a lot of interesting stuff being posted, I guess. I don't really follow it much anymore. And you've got timed events too. So the Olympics coming up, well, guess what? There are new loot boxes, new things to get, new costumes, new emotes, new animations, new voice clips. Halloween coming up, maybe there's a new challenge, right? And then, oh my goodness, right? Loot crates upon loot crates upon loot crates, right? And what's cool and interesting, but maybe not so ethical, it's hard to decide, is these are very, very cheap, right? So they're fairly accessible. If you bought Overwatch, but you don't have a huge budget to buy another game or expansion pack, you could probably afford $2 to get a loot crate and a little bit of extra content, right? So one thing that's very interesting about this, right? An anonymous Ann Arbor developer. So before we move on, I want you to think about this, okay? So why would developers do this? Why would publishers want to do this? More of this and less of this? What's in it for the developers, right? Okay, they make money, right? But, thinking about them and just saying, oh, they're just a bunch of Scrooge McDucks, it's not very satisfying, is it? And I'll tell you, in many cases, it's not very true either. Why would developers prefer an ecosystem where there are lots of different ways to exchange value with the user, right? Lots of different ways to get paid and get funding, instead of just, one release, and if it goes bad, you're dead, right? Why would developers do this? Chad, I want your thoughts here. One of the things I miss most is the interactivity of in-person lectures, where we can kind of go back and forth and discuss a little bit. It's kind of hard this way. What do you think, chat? We've got a simple ecosystem. We've got this sometimes, player unfriendly deep ecosystem. More accessibility, okay? Right? So more people can participate. What else? So we haven't talked a lot about what it's like to be a game studio and work in one, right? And how the industry can be a little bit volatile, right? You've probably heard some of the stories, seen some of the articles. Working in games is a really, really kind of risky business, okay? And owning a studio, keeping a studio alive through game after game after game is extremely difficult and very stressful, okay? Games take a long time to make. StarCraft, I think it was about 2 years, okay, with teams of like 30 on the small end, to today, it's like today AAA games take 4 to 5 years on teams of like 300, okay? Extremely talented people. And that is not cheap. That's not cheap at all. So imagine the scenario. You're running a studio and you put 2 years and most of your money into this because it's an extremely expensive thing, making games. And you put your game out and, oh gosh, they don't like it. Okay, the players don't really like it. They don't like the design. It's annoying them. The art style is just not really hitting like we hoped it would. Oh gosh, it's a flop. It's a flop, and I have 100 people in my studio who have families, right? They have kids that are about to go to college, right? They have medical things they need to worry about, medical bills. Okay, this is not a good situation, right? Being one flop away from death is really, really not good. No one likes that, okay? Investors don't like that. The people running these studios don't like that. The people working on the games really don't like that, okay? And so this risk is really, really nasty. And maybe if things go poorly, like maybe you can sprint and get to the expansion pack and get it out quickly, or maybe you can sprint and repurpose assets and try and launch a new game and bring it back from the brink, right? But often that just doesn't happen. So studios in those days, in the 90s, they went out of business a lot. You can find a lot of studios that released like 1 or maybe 2 games and then went bankrupt. Everyone got laid off, families uprooted, moving. It's just no good, right? It's a huge pain in the butt. And so what happens? Well, a company like Blizzard says, okay, I want to make it more likely that more people will play our game, right? And in case people don't like this game, I want them to have other games that we've made that they can go play, okay? In fact, if we do release a really great game, I never want our players to ever forget about it, right? I want to put these games in front of people as much as I can to keep that sales tail very long, so that in case this game fails, we can fall back on our other 2 games while we regroup, right? You want players engaging all the time. You want to be selling merchandise, right? Maybe not everyone likes to play Overwatch all the time and doesn't want to buy loot boxes, but maybe they want to buy a cool t-shirt, right? Maybe timed events will bring them back, right? They've fallen off of your current game faster than you liked, but now that there's a bunch of new content, new costumes, new excitement and energy in the air, right? Maybe they'll come back. And these loot crates, right? Super accessible. A kid can get a gift on a Saturday, random Saturday, and take that and buy a couple boxes, right? So all of these different options of the studio kind of getting funding back, right? This is a much less risky situation than this, where you're either dead or you're not, right? This is a situation where you can afford a little bit of failure, right? You can bring it back. You've got time. You know, your employees don't need to be crunching on a death march for years, right? Because it's either do it, crunch, or the studio goes under. This gives you a way, a diversified way to get funding, and that lowers the risk for everyone. So I want you to consider that maybe there are some other reasons besides pure greed as to why certain models become extremely popular, all right? So you don't need to like any of these, though. You don't need to like these. I certainly don't. But we want to understand why certain things are happening. We don't want to just chalk it up to people being evil or something that is unsatisfying and also unhelpful. All right. Stream. Yep. Awesome. Let's keep going. An anonymous Ann Arbor developer told me this, right? The rise of games as a service has changed the developer-publisher dynamic. In the past, publishers, right, could force harsh deals on a development team, right? Once the game was finished, who cares if the development studio even survives, right? So, Nintendo or Sony could pay a studio a certain amount of money to make a game, but they don't really care what happens to the studio after the game releases. They just kind of, hey, the game's out, we own it, so we're going to sell it. Who cares what happens to you, right? You can go bankrupt. However, These days, because of games as a service, right? Games that consistently get new content added, that do have microtransactions and stuff like that. In 2019, if your developer goes under because of your harsh deal that you put on them, you're going to lose your entire investment. Because you lose your developer, you lose your game. Your ecosystem falls apart. You can no longer add content, right? And so this is another reason why you might be surprised to hear some developers don't despise this new model of adding content over time and stuff like that. So anyway, ecosystems. Ecosystems are really having a big impact in games, and they'll have a big impact on your team, essentially, well, wherever you go, right? If you go to Amazon, they have one of the world's largest ecosystems, right? If you go to academia, if you go to UMich and become a researcher, one of the coolest things about UMich is we have so many diverse, respected and impactful programs, right? If you are in the computer vision groups here at Michigan as a researcher or a PhD student, one of the best things is that UMich has an ecosystem where you can go and leverage the fantastic AI and machine learning group that's right across the hall, right? And so you'll find ecosystems everywhere you look, right? And sometimes you'll find ecosystems that get too close to monopoly and then they get broken up, hopefully. So anyway, it's something to think about. Ecosystem map. If you're ever dealing with a new product, if you ever notice that someone's trying to sell you something after selling you a first thing, you're dealing with an ecosystem. Here's my recommendation. Be careful that you don't get trapped in an ecosystem, okay? Because if you get trapped in the ecosystem and it's too hard to leave, then you've lost kind of your leverage as a participant in that ecosystem. You're going to get prices going up, you're going to get gouged, you're going to lack options, you're going to be stuck there. And that's not good for you, okay? So be careful about falling into any ecosystem too tightly. Okay, let's keep going. I want to talk about one more tool and then we'll break for the day, all right? So value chain, right? You might have heard about this before, but I've got a scenario for you, okay? This is Timmy. Timmy has $9, okay? Timmy is a student at the University of Michigan pre-pandemic, okay? So $9, and Timmy is pretty hungry. So Timmy takes that $9 to Panda Express. And my question for you is, does Panda Express, and I just revealed it, does Panda Express get to keep that $9? Yay or nay? I really could use some Panda Express right now. That is, and I don't mean to be an ad. I don't mean to be a sellout. If you want me to shout you out, you just make a good product. That's easy enough. No, Panda Express does not get to keep that $9. Why? Because Panda Express has to use that $9, at least part of it, to get their service, to create their product, right? They have to pay $2, let's say, to the shipping company, to the supplier, which gets the food ingredients to Panda so they can cook it. They have to pay $5 to the employees, right, who actually do bring their talent to preparing the meal, right? But that's not actually the end of it, because this supplying company has to pay the farmers, right, the raw ingredients that they then take and process and transport before giving it to Panda. And so you can see that we have a little bit of a chain here, in that the resource, right, of cash in this case, the resource that goes from the user goes to Panda, and it kind of spreads out, right? And each stop in this chain collects a little bit of that money before passing on the rest of the resource to make the magic happen, right? So Panda pockets $2 per meal. But I've got a question for you. What if Panda wanted to keep more of the money, okay? And let's say Panda needs to keep more of the money because their competitor KFC launched a game studio, and that's going to take some cash, all right? So Panda needs their own game studio. We need to keep more of this cash going through the chain. Well, what can Panda do? They can try and do a buyout. They can vertically integrate, this is called. And they can say, you know what, Panda Express is not just going to be about the preparation of the food. It's going to be about the sourcing of the food, the processing of the food, and the delivery and then preparation of the food. Okay, so we're going to create this entire chain. Panda's going to buy it out. Okay, now Panda doesn't need to send as much money down this chain. They probably send more than $0 because they do need to spend money on these same things, but they get to keep more of that cash, right? They pocket $4, though probably not quite. The idea is that they get to prevent this company from keeping their share before they pass it on. They get to prevent the profit from going to this farmer. They will become more efficient, hopefully, and get to pocket some more cash. So let's say you made a great game, okay? And you have made some really cool stuff in this course. And by the way, think about Yoked, the example I told you about a few days ago. Like you very literally could take your P3 team and sign a big deal, right? I can't tell you how much funding the Yoked team has received. I can't tell you that, but I'll let your imagination run wild. So you made a great game, and here comes the money, right?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
All right, so here comes the money. You made a great game. Well, I've got some bad news for you. Because Timmy's back, and he's not hungry anymore. He's bored. So he's going to buy a game. He takes his $60, he takes it to GameStop. The popular retail, it used to be popular video game retail giant. Okay, you are all the way over here in the bottom left of this chain. Okay, and that's not good. That's not good for you. Because this $60, well, GameStop isn't passing all of it along. Okay, GameStop gonna keep about 15. All right, gonna keep about a quarter of that 60. Is it coming to you? No, it's going to someone else. It's going to the warehousing, the disc printers, the manufacturer of the physical disc. Okay, they need their cut too. So they're gonna take that $45. We're gonna keep 15. All right, you're gonna get $30, right? No, because you're releasing it on the Sony PlayStation 4. Which means that Sony is going to take that $15, going to take their own cut, because, hey, we built the hardware, right? We're helping you advertise. We brought you all your users, okay? You want to release on our system, you're going to pay us that cut. And so $15, your game might have been worth $60, but you're only going to get 15 of that. And the numbers aren't accurate, but this final breakdown is. So studios get about $15 for 60. The actual development team does if they go through the retail chain. Okay. Now I have to tell you, no joke, you could be in the position to be thinking about this stuff at the end of the semester, right? If your game finds a publisher and you want to do that, are you happy about this? Would you be happy if the publisher told you, by the way, you're going to get 25% of all of the value your work brought in? That's not cool, right? That's not great. That's a really bad news, because you have to sell a lot more copies to break even, right? If you're only getting 25% of the value of your product. So here's something that you might prefer. You see this chain and you say, I don't like this. Is there any route through the chain that's better for me? Okay, so let's look at another route. So Timmy says, I'm not going to GameStop. I'm going to go the digital route. Okay, I'm going to download the game to my machine. I'm going to give the $60 to Valve. Okay, Valve takes a nice hearty 30% cut, right? Or 25% in this case, I guess. So, but hey, that's better, right? You're not getting the full $60 worth of the product you created, but you're getting $45. That's much better, right? So a lot of the indies that you'll see and a lot of the AA studios will sometimes prefer, they'll go digital only. I think with Stardock, for instance, which is in Plymouth, they're a fairly big studio, but they don't sell any of their games, to my knowledge, through retail. They only go digital. And they don't go through Steam either. Actually, I think they do, but they also sell games on their website. So you say, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. However, I would really like this, right? Heck yeah. And so, what can you do? Well, if you're Electronic Arts, you can do this. You can say, you know what? I don't want to give 30% to Valve. Okay, they're not earning that 30%. I think I can do that. I think I can do their job cheaper, more efficiently. So we're going to create Origin, our own Steam competitor. And that way, Timmy's money comes to us, and, well, it comes to us. That's it. We get to keep the entire value in this chain. So this is really, really cool if you're EA and if you can make this work, if you can get users to do most of their transactions through your part of the chain that you own. And so, yeah, it's a good time. A question for you. What happened to GameStop? What happened to GameStop? Yeah. So what happened to GameStop? Well, GameStop, you see, they're up here in this part of the chain, right? And as it turns out, when you go digital, it actually is possible to sell your game for cheaper, to give the user a better deal, right? Since you are getting more value through the chain, you can give some of that back to the customer, particularly if you want more people to play your game. And so you might notice that there are just a ton of games on Steam, on itch.io, on Epic Game Store that just don't exist in GameStop. You can't buy them physically. And so players start to want to buy things digitally, right? And if you look at the PlayStation 5, who's seen the PlayStation 5? The PlayStation 5 comes in two variants. One that has a physical disc drive, so you can play a game from GameStop that you bought, and one that does not. And the last time I looked, the digital-only version of the PS5 was about $100 cheaper. Isn't that incredible? So there are a lot of things that are driving players to go the digital-only route these days, from discounts, right, to ease of use. You don't have to worry about losing or scratching a disc. It's always going to be with your account, unless the service dies and goes bankrupt, but forget about that. And so what happened was GameStop got cut out. GameStop got cut out of the value chain. Consumers started putting more of their resources through these two routes instead. And GameStop was like, oh gosh, what can we do? Did you know that GameStop actually purchased a Steam competitor? So GameStop worried about this. They purchased a Steam competitor from Stardock, actually, a couple miles away. And then it just didn't work out, right? So they tried to wiggle their way into this digital part of the value chain, but they couldn't do it. They failed, and now they're struggling quite a bit. Stadia, right? Who's heard of Google Stadia? Whenever a big new technology comes out, everyone gets the nervous eyes, right? Because when a big new piece of technology comes out, it threatens to disrupt and change the chain, okay? It threatens to reroute resources through a different part of the chain, and if you aren't in that part of the chain, you're going to wither on the vine and disappear, all right? I'm not saying Stadia is going to do this. We'll talk about them in a sec, but who knows? They might. So here's a way to think about what Stadia could do, okay? So Timmy, right here, in order to play a game on a new console, Timmy takes $300 to $500 and buys a new console, and then $60 per game, okay? Gives that to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo to get the console and then start playing the games. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft then give you 15 to 30% for the developers, I guess, actually more like 70, to actually make the games, all right? And so we got this chain going on. Now look at this chain. There's a new route that Stadia has created, okay? So Timmy, for $0 per month, can use Google Stadia. Now they still need to buy the games, and they're not cheaper yet, okay? But look at that. Timmy is already about $300 to $500 ahead, right? And now the experience might be a bit different. There might be lag. It might go bankrupt. They might lose their games. The mods might be impossible. But Timmy doesn't have to pay $300 to $500. There's now a much more accessible route through this ecosystem, through this chain. And players may or may not take it, but it's scaring people, okay? It's really, really scary. Because if Stadia, right, Stadia might be able to give actually a little bit more to get more people going through this chain, right? So anyway, there's a lot of nervousness happening in the console makers right now. And you don't need to speculate about this. Because news stories come out, right? Stadia launches, right? Stadia is announced. Soon after, Microsoft announces its xCloud streaming service. Okay, so now Xbox is going to create a streaming service. Xbox really wants to be in this part of the chain too, because they're worried that this part of the chain might wither and die. Okay, well, what about Sony? Microsoft and Sony, arch rivals, teaming up to create their own cloud gaming service using Microsoft Azure. Okay, so Sony's in on this too, right? And if you explore, you'll find that Capcom and other studios are also creating their own cloud services, their own streaming service. All right. Oh yeah, Amazon Luna. We talked about Amazon Luna not too long ago, right? So everyone's getting in on this. Everyone is spooked right now. And that's what you're going to see essentially when any new interesting technology comes out. It might not reroute the chain, but even the fact that it might means all of the incumbent players have to scramble to make sure that if it does get rerouted, right? If the healthiest parts of the chain tree does change, they have to be there. Otherwise, their entire existence is threatened, and it might be too late to get into new branches by that point. So GameStop is kind of falling apart. You'll notice that the stock price for other companies have been falling apart too, right? Macy's, Sears, Kroger. Sears isn't even around anymore. Okay, well, who disrupted these other companies? And Amazon would be the answer. You said it earlier. So Amazon came in and said, you know what? We don't think there's actually that much value to the retail that you provide, okay? You don't actually matter that much to the user. We're going to make it all digital. We're going to make it all delivery. And we're going to cut you out of the chain. We're going to create a new path through the value chain. The user paying money to get their goods. And these companies have been kind of cut out, right? If you look at the companies that have fought back against this, Walmart, they're hanging in there. Walmart is interesting because they're fighting back. They're saying, you know what? You're trying to cut us out of the chain. We're going to jump in to your chain and cut you out. Okay? So Walmart made a bunch of huge investments in their digital technologies team. They bought like Jet.com. They bought Amazon.com rivals. And they're fighting back pretty hard. And so I believe if you look at their chart, it's going to look a lot healthier than this because they've kind of been able to get themselves into what people think is going to be the winning part of the chain. Okay, what happened to Blockbuster, everyone? This might be the classic example of you getting cut out of a value chain. And you don't need to stick around, but I'm going to finish this lecture up. Well, Blockbuster Video, right? They're the last Blockbuster, right? There's only one left. In fact, this fact is so shocking to people, how Blockbuster was this huge corporate titan, and now it's down to one final chain that people like tour through. It's basically a museum, I think, at this point. So it was founded in 1985 in Dallas, Texas. It employed a ton of people, right? So its failure was really devastating. So ask yourself, where were they in the value chain? Okay? A user wants to watch a movie. They can buy the movie, right? But that's expensive. They can rent the movie. That's much cheaper, and they still basically get the same amount of fun and entertainment out of it, unless they want to watch it a bunch of times. So Blockbuster inserted themselves in this part of the value chain that was super accessible, and customers loved it, right? So they got in by finding a great new route through the value chain. But then they got cut out because, as it turns out, you can rent a movie to someone without having to have a physical store, okay? What is the company that did it? Foxkilla comes in with Netflix, right? What happened? Okay, what happened? So Blockbuster was an intermediary between studios who were safe, right? Studios are safe in the value chain because they create the darn content, right? You can't really cut them out or you have nothing that the user wants. And the television producers, who were also safe. It provided distribution, but it did so in a way that didn't matter, okay? So Blockbuster only did physical distribution. They did not do digital distribution. So they got cut entirely out of that part of the chain, right? The questions were here. So Netflix came in and said, we'll give it to you cheaper. We'll give it to you without you having to go to the store. And because of that, they won out, right? But the real thing to notice here is that Blockbuster just didn't know where they were in the value chain, and they didn't really understand what value they provided to the customer. And because of this, the part of the value chain they were in withered away and them with it, okay? So they really should have seen that they were getting cut out through digital distribution and just launched headfirst into it, like Walmart is doing against Amazon. They might have made it. So, tools for business questions. Why did loot boxes appear? Right? You're playing a game one day, you're annoyed. Why are these in my games these days? Why did Electronic Arts create this weird service? Why can't I just buy their game on Steam? Why is GameStop disappearing? Why are they struggling so much? A lot of these business questions, very interesting ones, can be understood and answered through these really simple techniques. Think about ecosystems and draw them out if you need to, and think about value chains. So how does someone's hard-earned dollar kind of flow through a system of different producers, creating one final experience for the customer? Okay. So anyway, I highly recommend a new channel I found recently. It's called Company Man, which is kind of a funny name. It is a really, really cool channel that briefly goes into the history of what happened to various companies. Essentially, how did they get cut out of their value chains? How did they develop these incredible ecosystems for certain other companies, right? So I recommend watching some of these. They'll go over why some of your favorite brands like Chuck E. Cheese from your childhood died and withered on the vine, okay? Anyway, that is all I have for you today. Again, if this seems a little bit tangential, understand that if you want to become a really well-rounded engineer that has a lot of impact, you need to understand things beyond the domain of just pure coding, okay? Don't just be a code monkey or whatever that's called, or a script kiddie. You want to be a well-rounded engineer that understands context, okay? The context of all of your systems and the context of your teams, too. You can't really have good, impactful systems if you don't have a team. You can't really have a good, impactful, and efficient team if you don't understand the context of that team. How important is your team to the company? If you are on the digital yo-yo team at Amazon and Jeff Bezos seems to be really much more interested in cloud right now, you might start wondering how long your team is going to survive, right? Or if you're going to have your resources reallocated to some other team. So you do need to think about these things, okay? Anyway, it's again, the fun of game dev is how multidisciplinary it is. And you'll discover that all of these different disciplines are just as deep and interesting and engaging and full of history that video games themselves are, okay? And maybe in many cases more so. So please, I hope you have a fantastic, safe, and healthy week. I hope you have a really productive development period on your your P3 milestone 2. And please let us know if you have any issues in Piazza. Please watch your feedback. Definitely watch your instructor feedback and consider the things we said. Okay? Thank you so much, everyone. I'll stick around for about 5 more minutes, or probably about 10 more minutes. I'll throw the music on. You can ask any questions. Okay? Let's get that music going. Okay. All right. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's probably a very tired day for many of us. Any questions, chat? Yeah, that's Principle Z. That's a really interesting point. the used game market, you know, customers love the used game market because they can buy games for cheaper, right? GameStop loves the used game market. But you know who really doesn't love the used game market? The people who make the games. So, GameStop gets a lot of its money by reselling games. So they'll sell a brand new copy, but then that copy will get turned in and they'll give the customer a refund. But not ever as much as the game's truly worth, right? They'll then resell that copy, that used copy, like 10, 20 times, making a profit on each sale. GameStop gets that profit from each transaction, back and forth. But the developer only sees the money from the first sale. And so, well, what does this mean? Well, developers really do not like GameStop as a result. They really do not like GameStop at all. And so, you actually end up with the developers trying to do something about it, like pushing as hard as they can for digital only, because you can't really resell a digital game, at least not right now. You'll also see developers doing some things, like if they sell a game at retail, they will package in a code you're supposed to enter to like enable online multiplayer. And they will, in that way, you need to buy a new copy of the game to get all of its features. This has kind of gone away, but it was a way to basically prevent the used game market from hurting the developer, even though I think it could be easily argued that it hurt the consumer as well. Yeah, I remember being like, I think in high school or something when that was a big deal. And I remember just reading hot takes on the internet, just how wonderfully terrible it was that EA, only let you play multiplayer if you had a new copy. Otherwise you had to pay $20 to like enable multiplayer. And I remember how angry I was as just a video game player. And now as a developer, I'm just like, yeah, I'm okay with this. Used game market stinks. It kills my studio. It doesn't kill my studio. We're digital only, but it's diverse perspectives are very important. It's maybe more important because it's hard to get diverse perspectives sometimes. More important, I think it's just to stay calm and not jump to conclusions, right? Like if something really strange is happening, like a company makes a really weird choice that doesn't make sense to you, and especially if it's going to anger you, you have to kind of say like, okay, wait a second, okay, there's got to be some reason this is happening, right? It's not just the universe isn't trying to spite me by making my games more expensive. Like there's got to be some interesting reason that this is happening. And learning more about that can make you much more empathetic. And if you want to change that kind of stuff, first you have to really understand it. So, okay. Where are we? I think we got about 2 more minutes. I'm going to hang around. Oh, well, yeesh, I got 2 hours, my dude. 2 hours last night. That was rough. I had the slowest uploads I've ever had. My internet just couldn't handle the videos for the P3 milestone feedback. Woo. How the tables have turned indeed. Yeah, I should watch what I say. Like, that's karma, I think. I'm coming for me hard. Ooh. I'm gonna have to buy Starlink or something, supplement my Comcast cheapo internet. It could also be the hoster, though. I'm using Backblaze, which I imagine some of the students have noticed by looking at the links I post. Backblaze is like the ultra cheap budget hosting service. It's kind of like Amazon S3, but with less availability guarantees, much worse performance for downloads and uploads. But just, it's so cheap you can basically forget about it. I have like I have like hundreds of gigs stored at this point in Backblaze, and I pay like $1.30 per month for that. It's pretty awesome. Okay, I really like the phrase "how the turntables," because turntables are actually a thing. Or wait, are they called turnstiles? I don't know. Okay, I think that's it, everyone. I'm gonna go sleep, I guess. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, even if it felt a little bit tangential. And I hope you have a fantastic, safe, and healthy week. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye bye.